is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. Charles Swindoll said this: "When I look back on my life, on the times that I have reacted well and chosen a good attitude, and the times I have not reacted so well and chosen not so good an attitude, it has dictated the way the rest of my week, the rest of my month has gone. The times that I chose a positive attitude and a positive response, the after effect was much greater." Take, for example, 4 weeks ago today, when Corey and I were dutifully sitting at our dining room table doing our monthly budget. We heard what I thought was a delightful, much-needed rain. Jumping at any excuse I could possibly jump at to get away from doing our monthly budget, I ran to the front of the house to see that this delightful storm was in fact much more of a torrential downpour. Gale force winds that were bending our trees, beating up our poor little flowers that we'd worked so hard on, hail, and rain that was so thick you couldn't see more than 5 feet. Excited, I brought Corey to the front window, and no sooner had I done that than we heard what I can only describe as a house-crushing noise. As pictures flew off the wall, Corey grabbed me because we thought that this must be an unannounced tornado. We were quickly snapped out of our fear when we heard the sound of rushing water. As we ran to the back of the house, we realized that the tree that had formerly been in our neighbor's yard was now sitting in our bathroom. And by sitting, I really mean had collided with our bathroom, and with it had brought in all of the rain that was coming down outside. Knowing that you shouldn't have rain in your house, we grabbed all the towels we could find and made a barricade. Quickly, we learned that the 6 to 7 inches of towel barricade were not holding up to the water that was coming in. So Corey grabbed the trash can, dumped out the trash, and was bailing water as fast as he could. As soon as the hail slowed down enough, we ran outside and got our shop vac, which if you do not own a shop vac, I highly recommend that you go out today and buy one. Because this little bitty shop vac had the sucking power of probably 400 shop vacs, because it was sucking up this black, nasty glass, insulation-filled water, and we were bailing 2 at a time. We'd suck up with the shop vac and then bail the water. Now I will tell you, this has been a big inconvenience. When they ripped off the roof, they ripped off literally half the roof. They also took out the insulation. There were holes in the ceiling, so it was painfully hot in our house. So for 2.5 weeks, Corey and I moved in and lived with my parents. Now, I love my parents. But let me tell you that living with your parents at 27 years old with a husband is just as cool as that sounds. And even the day after this happened, people were coming up to me complaining about their fence or the siding on their house. And I couldn't help but think about how lucky we were. Because how different would this story have been if one of us had been in the bathroom? How different would this story have been if the tree had fallen in the dining room, or had gone the other way and completely crushed the neighbor's house? How different would this story have been if we didn't have family to take us into their home and we had to stay in the sweltering hot heat? How different would this have been if we didn't have friends and other family members who just swallowed us up with love and prayers and thoughts? And how different would this have been if we didn't understand that you can always replace things? About a month ago, there was an article in Time talking about the power of optimism. And in this article, this psychologist studied optimistic people and non-optimistic people. And what he found was fascinating. Because what he found is that optimistic people not only report living happier, more successful lives, but they overcome obstacles more easily, they actually make more money, they have more friends, they live longer. All of these things based simply on their decision, their choice, to react positively to bad situations. In our lives, bad things will happen. There will be more tornadoes. There will be more torrential downpours. We, after all, live in Oklahoma. There will be bad things. We will lose people that we love. And we don't have control over most of that. But what we always have control over is how we react in those situations. Charles Swindoll said, "I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it." In this quote, he goes on to say that he thinks attitude is more important than education, more important than skill set, more important than training. He goes on to say that he thinks attitude has the power to make or break a church, a home, a community. He says that while we can't control what happens to us, we can always control how we react to it. So when things fall apart for you, how will you choose